Charles, can you bang the gavel? Call meeting order. Thank you. With that, Rebecca, can we get a roll call, please?
Mayor Casissa, I'm gonna be doing the clerk duties tonight, so I'll go ahead and call roll.
Thanks.
Councilmember Beckman.
Here.
Councilmember Mongan. Councilmember Ravazio.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lee.
Here.
And Mayor Casissa.
Here, and if we can just all stand and salute the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And just really quick, before we get to public comment, Rebecca, can you just touch upon an incident that happened on the east side of Corte Madera and just really quickly just give a quick background and what the response was and the outcome? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Casissa. Yes, earlier this morning at approximately 10:20, a crew working at a residence up on Granada Avenue in Corte Madera, they were grinding a stump and they hit a 1-inch gas line, which caused a gas leak in the neighborhood. The police department was going to evacuate approximately 20 plus homes. It was between 15 and 20. I don't have an exact number, but they did issue a Nixle alert to the entire community to let the community know about the gas leak. And the majority of the homes that they were evacuating were empty because it was a work day, and they did evacuate several people who left their homes for a little over an hour. And this was due to the fact that the PG&E response was a little delayed. They needed to come out and secure the gas line and cap it. And once they were on scene and capped it, then the residents were allowed to return, and they were evacuated for approximately 1 hour. And the event was considered secured at approximately 12:30.
Thanks, appreciate that. I'm glad everybody is safe. With that, we'll go ahead and go to open time for public comment. This gives anyone from the public opportunity to speak on any topic or subject that is not on our agenda. You will be limited to 3 minutes, and Rebecca has a timer she'll put up. Is there anybody there? It doesn't look like there's anybody there in person. So we have one hand raised. If you can bring that person over, please. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring Duriya Said over, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. And bear with me, let me just start the timer whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. You pronounced my name perfectly fine. My name is Duriya Sayed, and I'm an outreach analyst for the Department of Insurance with Community Relations and Outreach Branch. And I'm just happy to give you an update on the work we have been doing on your behalf. It is a wildfire season, almost to the end. So I want to touch bases on Safer from Wildfire Framework, an interagency partnership between Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara and the Emergency Response and Readiness agencies in the Governor Gavin Newsom's administration. Its purpose is to protect lives, homes, and businesses by reducing wildfire risk. We are working with CAL FIRE, CAL OES, the Governor Office of Planning and Research, and the California Public Utilities. Commissioner Lara is using every tool available to improve insurance for our communities. Based on the direct experiences of first responders and the latest research on wildfires, the partnership created a consistent approach to reducing risk with a list of achievable, certifiable, and effective actions to help make existing homes and businesses safer. So it's kind of a ground-up approach. Like we call it 1, 2, 3 plan. Number 1, protect the structure, such as making sure your roof and vents are up to code. Number 2, the immediate surroundings, such as brush too close to your home. And number 3, the final is the community, involves your entire community to prevent wildfires from catching and spreading to other homes and businesses in the neighborhood. This includes enhanced infrastructure and programs like Firewise Community. Good news is that a few weeks ago, Insurance Commissioner Lara submitted his insurance pricing regulation to the California Office of Administrative Law, and would recognize and reward wildfire safety and mitigation efforts made by homeowners and businesses. This regulation is first in the nation, requiring insurance companies to provide discount to consumers under the Safer from Wildfires framework created by the California Department of Insurance in partnership with state agencies. We are hoping that this whole process will be done by January 2023. But actually, I just want to be here to let you know that I'm your outreach analyst. If you guys have any or your constituents have any insurance needs, please go on our website. We have so many tools available at insurance.ca.gov. And we have dedicated experts that can answer your specific question. Also, our callback time is just 2 minutes. So either do live chat or we'll get back to you and walk you through step by step if you are having any issues. Thank you so much and have a great evening.
Thanks, appreciate the comments and the advice and input. I don't see any more hands raised. Lorena, did we get any email comments in that you need to read?
Yes, we did. We received one from Judy Ardrooney. Hopefully I said her last name correctly. She lives at 23 Lakeside. The comment, oh, sorry, let me restart the timer just so I'm doing this correctly. Okay. Good. So Judy says there is a need for an additional bench or two at the dog park, preferably to be placed in the shade on the southeast side. The park is attracting people of all ages, and it is hard to stand around, sometimes up to an hour. We all appreciate the park so much, as do our pets. Thank you. And that was the end of her comment, and we don't have any additional email public comments.
Thank you. With that, as we don't have any more email comments and there's no more hands raised, I'll go ahead and close public comment. We do not have any presentations tonight. We'll move to the consent calendar. These are items are in the normal course of business. They don't require further discussion. They can be approved by a single vote. Anyone from the town council, town staff, or the public may request that item be pulled for further discussion. So with that in mind, is there anybody from the town council, town staff, or the public that wishes to have an item removed for further discussion? And I don't see any hands raised. Did we get any email comments in?
No, we did not.
Thanks. With that, I'll bring back to council, and we're looking for a motion to approve consent items 4A through 4D.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Thanks. If there's no further discussion, go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
and Mayor Casissa.
Yes, we do not have any public hearings tonight. We're going to move on to our business items, and we have about 5 or 6 of them. First up is Ashley Howell, our Director of Parks and Rec. She's going to give us an update on the master plan, and we're also looking for possible approval of a professional services contract with MAC 5. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. A subject matter tonight is update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and consideration, as Mayor Casissa said, for a professional services agreement with MAC 5 in an amount not to exceed $74,935 for preparation of a facilities conditions assessment of our Parks and Recreation facilities for the town of Puerto Madera. Recommended action this evening is to receive and discuss the update on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan that includes an introduction of a facility conditions assessment and information on planned community workshops regarding a new permanent restroom in Town Park, and discuss and consider approval for a professional services agreement with MAC 5 in the amount not to exceed $74,935 for, again, the preparation of a facility conditions assessment for the Parks and Recreation facilities, and provide authorization for the town manager or designee to execute this agreement. Background for our discussion this evening is first, introduction of a facilities conditions assessment. When preparing a request for proposal for a formal and comprehensive master plan project, the scope of work generally includes the following tasks: inventory and assessment of existing facilities and programs, community engagement, an action plan, development of final plans and supporting materials, and project management. Comprehensive plans tend to cost over $200,000 and are intended to rely on the contracted company and their subcontractors to complete all or the majority of that work. As referenced, the last plan completed by the Parks and Recreation Department in 2007 for the Town Park Master Plan was $252,366. In 2020, when the Parks and Recreation Commission began work on the current Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the intent was to complete much of the work in-house to reduce the large overhead and to create a concise master plan document of priorities that reflected the interests of our community, essentially creating an executive summary and priorities with cost estimates that could be incorporated in the town's capital improvement plan at the direction of Town Council. Two components of the current master plan project that needed assistance from subject matter experts were community engagement and an assessment of our facility conditions. The implementation and evaluation of the needs assessment survey and completion of conditions assessment is pivotal to the integrity of the project and beyond the ability of town staff and the subcommittee of the commission. First, ETC Institute was selected to spearhead community engagement through implementation and analysis of community needs assessment survey and the facilitation of focus group workshops and collaborative facilitation of public meetings between March 2021 and January 2022. Their professional services totaled $24,125. Second, the town is pursuing a professional services agreement for a facility conditions assessment. The purpose of performing a conditions assessment of indoor and outdoor park and recreation facilities is to consider the current usage and condition of each facility, identify amenity deficiencies, provide options and cost estimates for deficiency items, and include a prioritization of recommendations for maintenance and renovation of parks and recreation facilities. In addition to the pursuit of the services agreement for the conditions assessment, staff is pursuing an agreement that will also include the professional assistance to organize all the data analysis into an action plan that includes cost estimates and prioritization. This service exceeds available time and expertise of town staff and the commission subcommittee members and can be performed by the same contractors performing the conditions assessment. Town staff proposes to enter a professional services agreement, seen in attachment 1, to combine both the preparation of the conditions assessment and the creation of the action plan for under $74,935. Attachment 2 is detailing listing of the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation facilities by indoor and outdoor facilities. Joining tonight's meeting via Zoom is David Ross, a senior project manager for MAC 5. David is a subject matter expert on both facility conditions assessment and development of final master plan documents. David will provide more information on the proposed scope of services, what a facility's conditions assessment includes, how it will be specifically support the work completed to date by the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Department through the community needs assessment, workshops, and community engagement meetings, and how the assessment can assist in prioritizing and monetizing elements of the completed master plan. I'm going to read through the second part and then we're going to bring David over. The second portion of the update for you this evening is the community workshops regarding new permanent restrooms in Town Park. The prioritization of improving public restrooms in Town Park is supported by Town Council's annual work plan and a community feedback collected through the master plan, community engagement sections in January, as well as the surveys. At the March 15th, 2022 Town Council meeting, Council gave support to staff to submit a grant request for partial funding through the development project supported by the General Per Capita Program. The grant request was later approved for $177,952 and included a 20% match by the town, which is the grantee, based on the project amount. The project cost range estimated by Public Works staff is from between $480,000 to $640,000 once the project completes the town's planning process, but not including staff time. At the March 15th meeting, I confirmed that before requesting Town Council approval on the restroom project, that staff would seek additional community feedback on design elements and location, perform additional site assessments, and would obtain formal project proposals. Following up on that plan, I have planned the first community workshop for Wednesday, October 26th, between 5:30 and 6:30 p.m. at the community center. The meeting will be recorded. Unfortunately, the community center is not equipped to host a hybrid meeting, so virtual participation is an option during that meeting. Attendees may participate in person or watch the recording and send feedback to public comment. And that will be incorporated into the planning of the second workshop. The purpose of hosting the meeting at the community center is to be close proximity to the proposed restroom locations, and this will allow attendees the opportunity to refer to locations within context of the park. Images will be available following online. The purpose of the first workshop is to review the discussions regarding locations and intended use gathered during the master plan public engagement meetings in January of 2022. And the workshop will be hosted by staff from both Parks and Rec and Public Works. More information will be available on our website for the master plan project. Fiscal impact of entering into a professional services agreement with MAC 5 for up to $74,935, which will most likely be funded by the Recreation Capital Fund. However, the town's general plan 2009 identified the general fund as the resource for conditions inventory, CIP funding, and master plan development. So decision on funding source will be determined by town management and the finance director. So if I could introduce David Ross from MAC 5, and he can speak to you a little bit about the intent and what goes into a conditions assessment. Welcome, David. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. Thanks for having me, Mayor Casissa and council members. One of the goals here was to kind of give a little background on myself and the team, and talk about the process. So I've been an architect about 35 years. I have been a principal at Bullstockwell Allen Architects, focusing primarily on public agency work, both civic and recreation. Have delivered numerous projects, both park projects and park planning, and built recreation facilities throughout the Bay Area. 9 of which have actually achieved CPRS, California Parks and Rec Society, Best of the Best awards, which I feel is in recreation, it's better than an AIA architecture award because it actually is voted on by the users. And so I've got a good background in recreation, both for parks and park facilities. Joining me is RHAA Landscape Architects. We typically team together on master plan projects. They bring a lot of expertise with park planning and sports facilities. And I kind of represent the built facilities, both the substantial major recreation facilities, but also all the ancillary structures, restrooms, and park facilities that are within the parks. Together, we've joined forces on several master plans, including that for the city of El Cerrito and the city of San Rafael. And Lauren Ivy at RHAA and I actually presented at CPRS a prioritization matrix workshop, really tackling what is part of this scope is it's establishing and helping towns and cities establish priorities and having a documentation of the process and a rationalization of the process. So I think it's an important part. So it's not purely a subjective analysis. It clearly is partially subjective, but it's documented and quantified with through the use of a matrix to really kind of establish a sort of scientific approach to what is typically a purely subjective analysis. And then we include all the elements necessary. Typically, it's a very customized matrix with influence from the staff and even city council and Parks and Rec Commission in terms of how the priorities are weighted and established and used in the process. In addition to the matrix, I think I want to just talk a little bit about how we proceed with the work that's been completed to date and how we establish an action plan for you. So we were challenged with submitting a proposal that really builds on the work completed to date. And that's really an essential part of this in keeping not only the momentum that's been established, but keeping our fees much lower than you would typically see for master plan services. So I've met with Ashley and the staff. We've kind of gone over the work completed to date with the needs assessment, the staff community outreach, and the survey work that's completed to date. So it's our intent to rely on that and the experience of the staff that participated in that effort to establish the needs assessment component of a master plan and move forward and build on that. We'll work closely with staff in reviewing the needs that came out of that and bringing our experience as well, contributing to and asking questions about the needs and what elements to include in the master plan action plan moving forward. We will simplify the deliverables to really focus on what you need for tools for implementation. The graphics are intentionally to be somewhat simplified, so they're not elaborate, detailed designs of parks. They're diagrammatic site plans indicating program elements, where they might be located, how they might be integrated, the timing, and allowing for future development of the details of any particular park development plan. You can really get caught up in fancy graphics at this point, but we feel like in order to move these forward, what's actually more important is a really clear narrative of the scope that would be included in each element and the background about what it's for, why it's been selected, and what details are important to incorporate in the design. So it's more a design guideline than it is a design. And that's been very intentional, because you're not quite sure how these are going to move forward. One of the goals here is to develop a master plan or an action plan that can be picked away with available funds. You may not be able to fund, an entire park renovation 100%. You may have to kind of roll up your sleeves and pick away at pieces of it. So that's going to require, once you identify a scope that you're moving forward with, that's going to require how to implement that, incorporating existing conditions and planned conditions for the future. So it's really important to just have the action plan, have the diagrammatic site plan, and the narratives. And finally, the cost analysis. So MAC5 does cost analysis for municipal facilities throughout the Bay Area. It's a core business function at MAC5. So we're very experienced in developing front-end costs without a lot of detail that are real world. They're not pie in the sky costs. This is really important, because the cost end of master planning often is rose-colored glasses, and rose-colored glasses don't help anyone. They develop unfulfillable kind of expectations from the public and from the council and from everyone involved. And so it's something we avoid and we take very seriously, is to develop realistic cost analysis so that you can move forward with confidence. Finally, the priority matrix, again, is really one of the last pieces that comes into play, because it's really best to identify all the elements before you start to prioritize them. Because a lot of times the content of those elements is important as anything else in establishing the priorities. One of the things that we'll be doing is trying to address the deficiency items that we identify in the facility assessments and the site assessments, so that you can ideally sort of kill two birds with one stone with projects, so that you can address all of the deficiencies with improvement projects. A lot of times we see public agencies operate with two ends of the spectrum. We've got CIP projects to address deficiencies, and then we've got a master plan process and projects moving forward, and they're not always integrated. They're not always identifying the most cost-effective way to build and the most cost-effective way to address all those needs. So one of the things that we're looking at is an integrated plan that wherever possible incorporates and addresses deficiencies as projects are identified to move forward. And it may mean that you actually defer some scope where you may want to try and identify your funding and identify development projects to address deficiencies, rather than addressing the deficiencies only to have that work removed as a project moves forward, because we often see that happening. So with that, I think that really gives the outline of what we're doing. But again, our goal here is an action plan. It's not a rose-colored fantasy that we want to sell you. It's really rolling up our sleeves and working with Ashley and the staff to come up with an action plan that can move forward.
And to clarify, staff has reached out to David and his firm as well as RHAA because we recognize that in order to get this project realized and to your consideration to actually make progress and move forward on some of the improvements and opportunities that we have in our community, is that we really wanted to have, you know, an independent subject matter expert. And we feel that that's really important. And it's also important to transparency. Staff has shared, you know, the feedback we've collected. He's asked questions about, you know, where we've come with some of these suggestions, or where some of the concerns of the community has been, and where we think we're going. But they're going to be taking independent assessments of our facilities. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified.
Yeah.
Are there any questions for David?
Any questions from town council members? Yeah, Eli, I think that's you again. I feel like I'm in the ballpark bleacher seats. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Fred. Thank you, David. Thank you, Ashley. I was just wondering if we could get a little bit more detail on kind of the translation of the facilities assessment into prioritization and an action plan. And specifically, do we have any thoughts yet about like what public involvement in that process might look like? Or is the thought that like the public involvement came primarily through the survey?
David can correct me, but my understanding is that the community engagement on the overall plan has been completed during the initial parts of the survey, the workshops, and then some of the meetings. But as we have this conditions assessment performed, this is going to overlay with the work that we've collected. And when David helps us present it into prioritization, he's going to be looking at deficiencies, because I'm sure that we can go out to any of our parks and miss a lot of deficiencies that a subject matter expert might notice that might take some more prioritization than we had intended or than we had imagined. So we really want to use their tool to help us refine some of that scope. And then when we go into these projects, it's going to be up to council to decide what options we pursue and to what degree, because like he said, there's going to be a lot of different elements of different projects. So say if we were looking at Granada Park, and we've heard very strongly that there's a need for pickleball and dedicated to separate some of the interest between our tennis players and our pickleball players. He's going to give us a concept that could maybe meet that solution. And we might not be able to put in 4 courts, but we could put 2 courts in, or we could change the picnic area there, or we could put in a restroom. He's going to be able to provide us all of these options for your consideration and selection to go forward. And then how I see the community engagement piece is that once council has decided what your priorities are to seek, then we can open up to the community and maybe we can refine some of those conversations. But again, it'll be up to your direction to how staff moves forward.
Sure. So when we say that we're coming up with an action plan, you know, and priorities, essentially what that means is like a menu of projects, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
A menu, you know, and it's really a smart menu, because it's a menu that you can understand all the benefits of it. Not only just what program elements will be added, but what deficiencies that will be addressed with that project, and an accurate cost forecast for that scope.
And then, David, you're looking at all facilities, right? Whether it's related to the master plan or not, it's everything across the board, right? And then you'd be looking at things like ADA accessibility, conditions, all that,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we won't, I'm not a formal CASP. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but there's a designation for a formal ADA assessment. I'm not a CASP professional, but I'm a licensed architect with 35 years, and I've implemented ADA in remodels and renovations through my entire career. So what you'll be getting is an overview. It won't be a detailed, you know, grab bar is 33 inches instead of 34 inches. It's really an overview of for instance, a restroom, where it's identified whether the restroom, is it configured so that it does meet ADA? Is it configured so that it could meet ADA? And generally, what would it take to accomplish that? Because that's typically what we see in restrooms and parks, is you have an old building, it got upgraded to ADA at some point, but it was really not a full compliance version. I flesh all that out to identify whether it's possible to do that, or whether you really are needing to start pushing walls and so forth. And then I create a cost model that budgets accordingly. So typically what we see is if it's determined that it's substantially in compliance, but there's a few things that are non-compliant, I'll identify those. But as a project moves forward to bring it into compliance, you'll have an architect. The architect will will identify the detailed scope for that.
Right.
But what you'll have is the overview and a budget that's consistent with the nature of the state of the project, to facilitate that, to move that along with confidence that you'll be able to accomplish it.
Okay, it sounds like something is a non-compliant and it was something that was something of urgency due to potentially legal issues down the road or some type of liability. That's something that you'd probably point out, saying this is probably something that you need to address like a lot sooner rather than putting it on a 3 or 5 year plan type thing.
Yeah, and there are levels of risk. So you can get in a situation, and we'll say light, moderate, or heavy risk, because if you have just a few elements that aren't quite right, you're not facing a major lawsuit. But if you've got a substantial compliance problem where someone just simply can't get in there, you're at a much higher risk. So we'll include that kind of tiered analysis as well.
Okay, and then I just have a couple more for you. I know one of the big priority items that came up through the survey was a swimming pool. How would you handle something like that? Because again, you're looking at taking up potentially space at Town Park or buying a piece of property somewhere or trying to partner with somebody. How would you, just on a high level, how would you look at something like that? And what would be some kind of deliverable that you would come back to us with?
Well,
Besides the cost.
one question is how big. So when you say pool, there's a huge variety of pools. So on the programming side, we'll work with staff to identify what we feel are the different pool types. I mean, we're talking about a 100-meter competition pool here, or are we talking about a rec pool? I mean, there's a lot of different pools to look at and identify what the program element really ought to be. And then we'll look at locations at, where can we fit this within the park system? And we'll ask staff if there are opportunities. I'll be honest, it hadn't come up whether we would be looking at additional park purchases. So that wasn't conceived of as part of this scope. But if it's, I don't, we're flexible. If something like that comes up and all of a sudden there's a site that may be available, we can work that into the report. It's not a big deal. I'm not aware of any right now, and I haven't talked about it with Ashley yet, so I don't know, where that might be, but certainly that could be considered.
Okay, thanks. And then, hey, Ashley, for you, are the bathrooms that you mentioned before in the park, is that carved out of the scope of this work? Since it looks like we're trying to move forward with that project?
Yeah, that was separate at the direction of town council after the work planning.
Okay. And then, no offense against you, David, Ashley, how did you come across MAC 5? Have you worked with them before, or do you have references on them?
Well, they're currently working for the town or for the city of Santa Fe, and then reviewing some of their past practices with El Cerrito and some of our other neighboring agencies that we respect have gone through their process, evaluating some of their project completions online, and then reaching out to our counterparts and asking more questions. And same with RHA. There's we wanted to go with the companies that were local, because not only would we would be supporting local businesses to Marin County, but they would be very well aware of some of our climate concerns, some of the native culture, what we were trying to preserve here, how we can go forward. But then they're also very familiar with our costs, so our development costs. That's a difference between if we put out a nationwide RFP and we had companies that were bidding on the process from out of state, they would be using indexes to try to determine what the actual costs are. But if we're going with local companies, we feel that we're going to have a more accurate representation and prioritization that we can provide council to choose from.
Okay, thanks.
And really quickly, we do have staff had provided David and RHA a list of indoor and outdoor facilities, and that's also in the attachment. And we had 3 indoor facilities, and these aren't necessarily all the ones that we operate, but we operate out of. So for example, we have listed the community center, the dance studio at Park Madera Center, and then Neil Cummins, because we're currently programming our childcare and our after-school programs out of there. So it's really having them look at the facilities that we're utilizing, because we know that we don't have a lot of classroom options for after-school programs, adult programming or any preschool programming at the community center right now. So having them go through and look at what we're using right now and what we could be using is going to be helping us prioritize as well for our programming side of it.
Okay, thanks. Adam has a hand raised. I'll let Adam, and I have two other questions for you, Ashley, which I may forget. Right,
Thanks, Mayor Casissa, and hello, everybody. Calling in remotely here. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Can you give me a little bit of thumbs up here?
You're good.
All right, good. Just on Mac 5 as well, I think we have some familiarity working with Mac 5, not David in particular, but other members of that firm. They are currently, well, they provided cost estimation services for Public Works Department as part of the town hall project, obviously. So currently working with them, they're also providing construction management services for the town as part of the ongoing construction at town hall. And then RHAA also was hired by, they worked on Marin Montessori's remodel over on Paradise Drive in 2017 as part of the adaptive reuse of the sort of residential building over there into a new school facility, and obviously associated landscaping associated with that project, and the natural, the fields and the rest of how to connect those facilities together over there. So anyways, I just wanted to mention we have prior relevant experience working with both companies, RHAA and Mac 5.
Okay, thanks. Two other questions for either Ashley or David. Ashley, you kind of touched upon it. Park Madera, the shopping center. Would Mac 5 be looking at that since we own that property? And again, I'm not advocating anything, but would you be looking at all that space potentially? Is it just like the one space that you're using?
We had talked about looking at specific spaces within that. And I think, but once you've done that, you've really kind of identified the issues that are going to be applicable to all of it. So I think, we don't necessarily need to review the entire facility to understand the kinds of issues you would have changing occupancies and doing renovations to accommodate use as classroom and so forth. Yeah, it's definitely in our scope and of interest to really look at how that some of that space might be used to meet your needs.
Okay, thanks. And then one last question. What's the timeline on this? And how does that timeline coincide with master plan ending or not ending? I want to say the beginning of the beginning.
Our work can be done fairly quickly, and I would say, as quickly as 2 to 3 months. What we found is that it's the reviewing process and the kind of collaborative nature of reviewing and coming back with some modifications, and how quickly we can cycle with the staff and with the city council is really the determination of how quickly we can get to the finish line. So we'll be expediting our work to do the assessments and to do the initial analysis, and right up to the point where we're developing that priority matrix. But I think once we present the first draft of that priority matrix, that's when the fun starts, and it really starts to, we get a lot of input, we make some adjustments, we come back. That can go quickly, it can go slowly. It just depends on how you guys want to work.
Okay, all right, thanks. Any other questions from town council members? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and open up to public comment. We do have one hand raised from Jim Jordan. You can bring him over, please. And then after that, we have one, Patty has her hand raised also. Go ahead, Jim, you should be able to speak.
Mr. Ross, I have a question for you, please, and that is, on your prior projects, have you allowed public participation and comments? And on this work that you may do for the town of Corte Madera, can you allow public participation in that process? Thank you.
Hey, David, we're
Sure.
going to hold all questions till we get to the end of public comment, then I'll let you go ahead and respond to that. Thanks. Was that it, Jim?
For now, yes, thank you.
Thanks. With that, we'll go ahead and move to Patty then, please. Go ahead, Patty. Can you hear us, Patty?
Patty, you should be able to speak whenever you're ready.
She's muted.
Patty, it looks like you're muted. Patty, can you hear us? I think you're muted.
We are selecting the option to unmute, so it's on your end, Patty, if you can hear us. Or try pressing star. I believe it's *6 or *9. Give me a second.
And Lorraine, I don't know if it makes any difference, but I know Jim is still on there, and I think Pat was brought over also, but I don't think she had a hand raised. And it looks like,
I didn't lower Jim's hand, so I'll go ahead and lower his hand.
thanks. And I don't see a hand. from
Doesn't
Pat.
look like Patty's audio is working right now.
Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, Patty, you can go ahead and send us an email and we'll include it in the record.
Okay, with that, I don't see any other hands raised. So can you, do you have any email?
We did
comment?
have an emailed public comment. Give me a second. Let me start the timer. Okay, and this public comment is from Jolie DeVilbis. On tonight's agenda, you are being asked to consider and approve a professional services agreement with Max Craig DBA Mac 5 in an amount not to exceed $74,935 for preparation of a facility conditions assessment of parks and recreation facilities. If Mac 5 is to appropriately, quote, support the work completed by date by the Corte Madera Parks and Recreation Department through the Community Needs Assessment survey, end quote, and Mac 5 will be taking 100% of their direction from the rec department. It is vital that the town council fully understand and validate the methods by which the rec department has used to determine its priorities. I'm contacting you to request a full review of the statistical validity of all surveys conducted by the Parks and Rec Department and make that review available to the public. As the Parks and Rec Department continues to outreach to the community to inform its decision and its recommendations, the validity of sampling methods and their appropriateness is critical. In the example of the survey sent to Corte Madera residents in mid-May conducted by the ETC Institute, the ETC Institute did a thorough explanation of their overall methodology and derived a confidence level of their results based on accepted statistical sampling methodology. See page 2 of their report, or page II. From 685 respondents, the ETC Institute was able to derive a 95% confidence level in the results because they conducted their survey with the aim to ensure representativity, ensuring the sample is big enough, balanced, and free from bias. In other words, every individual in the population had an equal chance of being represented. In direct contrast to the above, the Parks and Recreation Master Plan Community Engagement Questions received 264 respondents. In this case, the Parks and Rec Department did not make a sufficient effort to ensure the population had an equal chance of being represented. For example, the survey details were regularly distributed to all members of the Corte Madera Football Club, imploring them to reply to the survey, ensuring their constituents' voices were heard. In survey methodology, if you can target communication to one vector of the population over the population as a whole, it calls into question any conclusions that can be drawn. In addition, this anonymous survey did not validate that the respondents were from Corte Madera, and the original settings of the survey allowed respondents to answer multiple times. It's critical to the integrity of the process and to the town's future actions to assure the methodologies used to inform community preferences are statistically valid and are truly representative of the community. Again, I ask that the town council request a full review of the statistical validity of the Parks and Recs Community Engagement Survey. And that is time. And that was the only emailed public comment we had on this item.
Thanks. Since I don't see any other hands raised, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to council. Before I do that, David, can you answer the question that Jim had, please?
Sure. Question about public involvement. Typically, the way this works is the biggest public outreach is done at what we call the community outreach phase, which is during the needs assessment. So you're really trying to identify how people are using parks, what they feel that they still need, what needs are not being met, and any recommendations they have in terms of additional program elements or particular details. So that is the biggest outreach that we do in a conventional master plan, and that takes place with this during the survey period and all of the public outreach period. So in this case, that work is work completed to date. Typically, what we see is that the remainder of the public outreach often aligns with the Parks and Rec Commission and City Council presentations and discussions that are open for public comment. And that's kind of the model that we were assuming this would move forward with. And that's when presentations are made in terms of cost analysis and priority matrix and the project scope narratives are presented and so forth. So there will be opportunity for public to review each of the tools that are presented here and provide feedback during those meetings.
Okay, thanks. And then Ashley, do you have any comment or response on the email comment that we got in? And I know that there's a lot of work done on the statistical side of the equation.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to respond, Mayor Casissa. The purpose of the community engagement survey that was implemented by ETC Institute was the intention is to be statistically verified, and they did so. The purpose of the Survey Monkey tool that we put out were the same questions that were used in the community engagement sessions in January that we hosted via Zoom. And it was an opportunity to ask the same questions of people who were not able to attend those meetings, even though they were recorded. So it wasn't intended to be statistically relevant. It was intended to collect additional feedback, and it's not weighted the same because of that. Though the weight of the survey and the community engagement that we've had is on the survey that was sent out to all of our community residents and has been statistically verified.
Okay, thanks.
I would just add that the two-part survey methodology is actually pretty common, and it's the same that was used in both San Rafael and at El Cerrito.
Okay, thanks. With that, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council. I'm sorry. go
Mayor
ahead.
Casissa, sorry to interrupt. Patty was able to send an email with her comment, and it's just a quick comment, and she apologized for the settings on her new phone. She says, I thought I heard that Mac 5 wasn't pursuing any kind of pool, even though it was far and away the number one request. And that's it.
Okay, thanks. With that, I'll go ahead and bring it back to town council. We're looking for a input, comments, and possible motion to approve the contract with Mac 5. Somebody want to start us off? Go ahead, Bob.
Sorry, I couldn't get my microphone to work.
No problem.
I'm really torn on this, and I'll tell you why. We've been working on this for a long time, and we did a survey. We were told the survey was what we needed to do. The survey would give us the information we needed. We can make decisions on that. And now, and I'm sorry, I was hoping to talk to Adam, but I know he's on vacation. Now we're being asked to take another 3 months, spend another $75,000 in order to make decisions. After we had got all this information and then figured everything out. I'm a little uncomfortable with that, more than a little uncomfortable with that, quite frankly, because I thought we've been working on this for so long. I thought we'd be in a position to move forward. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say, because you're gonna be living with this, I'm not. So,
Go ahead, Eli.
Thanks. Fair point, Bob. On one hand, I definitely understand what you're saying, right? I think the value that I see potentially here is that the survey, excuse me, was, I think, helpful for, I mean, that should, I think, be the guiding element when it comes to prioritization. And so to that extent, I think hopefully we do have that information on lock, and I'm not sure that, a further sort of prioritization expense or exercise might be necessary. But the thing is that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the survey maybe does not substitute for like expert assessment on conditions of facilities. And so that would be one thing where I think there could be potentially value in something like what we're discussing here. Just from the standpoint of like, we got the community's feedback on what they want, what they don't want, or I guess their prioritization, right, is what we have, and that's super helpful. But certainly speaking for myself, when it comes to like, do our facilities meet ADA or things like that, that's not something that I, personally have like the expertise to feel comfortable relying on. And I certainly, I know that our staff knows more than I do on that, but I think, if staff is suggesting that we take, some help from the outside here from subject matter experts, I'm certainly willing to give that a fair shake.
Charles?
So speaking specifically to your question, I have done facility assessments as a licensed architect
With you.
for large public venues, the Salt Lake City International Airport, for example, where we did a existing analysis of all the concourses. The client had determined a program and specific goals that they wanted to reach, and whether the facilities could actually match and meet that currently. If not, what upgrades were requested, and ultimately what needed to happen to those facilities to meet it, so that you could determine an appropriate budget, or if you had a budget, basically which ones were achievable within that budget and which ones are not. And you cannot do that from a program alone, because a program is a desire and a dream of what everybody wants. The realities of the physical assets to actually support that are not actually assessed yet or understood, nor can the will of the people basically make them compliant or meet that thing without a cost analysis of being able to do that. That being said, it's not on town council to make that assessment. It's a third-party neutral party that will go and do that based on code and other industry standards, as I understand it, and it will come back with more information to help council make better decisions down the road with public input in meetings. So basically, I am comfortable with this. I do feel like it's an industry standard, and I think it will get us farther down the road. And I also feel like in seeing the rates and the diligence of it, and also I think it's a do not exceed, but ultimately, in facility assessments, you don't know everything you're going to get into. And that's why they have to basically look at it at first at a top down level, because when you get into the grab bar stuff, that takes a lot of time. And depending on what's discovered at this preliminary level, you'll end up getting more information about how to specifically bid out the architectural design down the road, right? So that's why I understand. If staff feels like that's necessary, then I can support it, because I've both executed it and supported it in other facilities that dealt with this type of large public infrastructure.
Okay. Thanks, Charles. And for me, I can support it also. I think coming from the park and rec world, years ago, everything was just kind of shoot from the hip, and there's really no plan in place. I think between the master plan, we have like one side of the equation, and by coming up with the facilities assessment, we'll have the other side, and the two can be meshed together. And the example I'll use is that if it comes back that we need more space for programming and we don't have a facilities assessment, we're going to have to determine and do one to figure out where we're going to put that programming at. this just does everything up front for us. And to me, I almost look at what RJ's doing with, with the work on the sanitary district. He's doing a comprehensive plan to plan out all that work ahead of time so we know how to prioritize. To me, it's the same type process. So I support this also. So with that, I'll go ahead and make the motion to go ahead and approve the professional services contract with MAC 5 not to exceed $74,935.
I'll second it.
Thanks. Any other further discussion? With that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes. With that, we'll go ahead and move to business item 6P. Ashley, you're up again. This is a possible adoption resolution number 53/2022, amending the compensation schedule for part-time hourly employees at the rec department. Go ahead.
Thank you. David hopped off, but I wanted to thank him again for joining us. The next topic is recommended action is to consider adoption of the resolution mentioned by Mayor Casisas, amending the compensation schedule for part-time hourly employees of the town of Corte Madera to reintroduce a pay scale for the recreation aid position classification. And the background on this position is that the entry-level classification of the Parks and Rec Department called Rec Aid. Our employees are generally the classification that are supporting childcare, summer camp. They're our entry-level position. And the job description is included in attachment 1. And in 2021, the pay scale for the classification was from a range of $13 an hour to $15 an hour, and that's included in attachment 2. And effective January of this year, the state of California's minimum wage was increased from $14 to $15, and the compensation for part-time hourly employees of the town was amended in resolution attachment 3. However, that resolution eliminated the pay scale for recreation aid classification, removing retaining only the top step, which was $15 an hour. And that's $15 an hour is the minimum wage for businesses of 26 or more employees. So discussion this evening that I would like to request is that Town's Council consider reestablishing that pay scale for recreation aid classification. Implementing the pay scale would allow novice employees the opportunity to develop their skills within the recreation aid classification prior to pursuing additional responsibilities, including a recreation assistant classification, which is generally the next step. And that description is in attachment 4. And the pay rates for the two positions currently, recreation aid is $15 an hour and the recreation assistant is $16 to $30 an hour. The reason why there's such a large range for the recreation assistant is that not only can that position have responsibilities within summer camp, youth programming, and childcare, but it can also be front desk staff and staff that is has more education to back up. Staff proposes the pay scale of a range of $15 to $19 an hour for the recreation aid classification. This change will provide a $4 an hour range through 2022 and account for an anticipated $3.50 range in 2023 when minimum wage is expected to increase to $15.50. The council is asked to consider the adoption of the resolution 53, 2022 and attachment 5, amending that compensation schedule for part-time hourly employees of the town of Corte Madera to reintroduce the pay scale for the recreation aid position classification drafted by staff. There's no fiscal impact, and the options proposed this evening is to adopt the resolution as presented, adopt with modifications, or take no action at this time.
Any questions from town council members? You're so efficient. Yeah, Eli, go ahead.
One quick question. This may be for Amy. Where does California's current minimum wage legislation top out at? Because it increases like 50 cents a year for some number of years, right? I'm pretty sure.
Good question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I know they built in a cost of living increase, so I'm not sure it tops out.
Okay.
But I'm sorry, I just don't know.
That's fine. No, that was a shot in the dark there. Okay, thank you.
When I researched, I only found it through 2023 with the additional 50 cents.
Okay, thank you.
And Ashley, how many employees does this affect or would affect potentially?
I think right now we might have maybe 6 on staff. That would be childcare. But then for the summer, then we'd probably bring on an additional 10.
Okay, thanks. And one other question also, all this, before you bring anything to us like this item, it was vetted through Park and Rec Commission, right? And the same thing with the one you brought us before, because I didn't see that in the staff report. I just want to make sure that's clear that everything's vetted through them before it comes to us, and they kind of approve it, and they give you guidance also and input on anything they're seeing on their side of it.
Yes, this item today is unanimously recommended by the Parks and Recreation Commission at their last commission meeting for council's consideration and possible approval.
Thanks. Any other question from council members? No, with that, I'll go ahead and open it for public comment. If there's anybody wishing to speak on this topic, please raise your hand. And I see one hand raised from Jim Jordan.
Okay, I'm going to allow him to speak and then start the timer.
Thanks. Go ahead, Jim. And again, this is on the salary pay scale for recreation aid position classification.
Now, I think I had my hand raised in time to comment further on the prior topic. And
Unfortunately, I checked with our city attorney, and since you'd already raised your hand, that was your opportunity at that point of time.
I said then that those were my comments for now, implying I have more comments. But in summary, I think the town government has rigged the master plan development
Yeah, hey,
process
Jim,
to install an artificial turf field on the town park.
Jim, I'm sorry, but again, you were
Oh,
given it 3 minutes.
Unfair,
under the master
unfair.
plan, so
I had my hand.
Yeah, I understand that. Just to clarify, is that when you open your hand under public comment, it's a one-time type deal. It's not the opportunity to go back and forth. So again, that's why you had your opportunity under when you were speaking under the master plan at that point of time.
Yes, and I would just add that, you know, any citizen can send an email to council and provide additional comments in that way.
Thank you, Amy. And with that, I don't see any other hands raised.
And we do not have any additional public comment submitted via email, and there is no one present in the council chambers right now.
Thanks. With that, I'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council. And we're looking for adoption of resolution number 532022, amending the compensation schedule.
I'll make the move.
I'll second.
Thanks. Any other further discussion? Go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes. And with that, we'll move to business item 6C, consideration and possible adoption of resolution number 542022, which is appoint a temporary chief building official and authorizing an interim town manager to execute contract for interim chief building official services with Thomas Ahearns. And with that, I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Casissa. I am going to take a stab at taking the lead on this because Adam is having technical difficulties with his internet accessibility at the moment. This is a resolution to appoint our temporary chief building official. And this is being brought forward to council because our building official, Chris Ragland, resigned from his position effective September 30th to start a new position. And with 2 weeks' notice has left us without a building official to run the planning and building, the building side of the planning and building department. And Thomas Ahrens served the town in that capacity in an interim basis back earlier last year from March to November of 2021. And he successfully saw the department through some transitions and the recruitment of a building official. So he was brought back on board with a new contract proposal to retain him for those same services. Nope. And yes, securing the services of Thomas Ahrens would be crucial to the efficient transition of functions and operations of the planning and building department. He has time in his schedule to accept this appointment in a limited basis while the town undergoes a recruitment of a new full-time building official. And if you know about the job market in our area right now, this is a difficult position to recruit and attract. So hopefully he will also help us seek a wider audience for our recruitment and Human Resources Manager will be beginning the recruitment shortly. I can answer any questions about Thomas Ahrens in particular, or this contract specifically, if you would like.
Any questions from town council members? Yeah, Eli, go ahead.
Thanks. Just one question. So I see that Mr. Ahrens would be coming back at about halftime, and I just wanted to confirm, is that enough? Does that meet our needs? Because I know that like we're used to having a full-time, right?
Yes, it will meet our needs. We have more staffing at the lower level than we did when Thomas was here previously.
Okay.
So we have plans inspectors and other staff in the building department that can handle the counter on the day-to-day basis. And Thomas is really providing that higher level guidance and helping with review and of plans. And if we need to add more, then we can come back for that. But he believes it's sufficient and Adam believes it's sufficient.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Rebecca, I just have two quick questions. One is, do you know when he would start if we approve this tonight?
He can start Wednesday.
Okay, thanks. And then the other question is, I assume, I just want to make sure we're already starting recruitment to find a somebody on a permanent basis.
Janet Thiessen is she's evaluating the current job description and salary schedule and or basically everything that she needs to post it on our job posting. And I think it should be up within a week, but I don't know for certain. But she is working on it, and since we recently did the recruitment less than a year ago, there isn't much updating to do in that respect.
Okay, thanks. Any other question from town council members? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and open up for public comment. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this topic? Please raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. Did we get any email comments in?
We do not have any emails for this item.
Thanks. So with that, I'll go ahead and bring it back to council for either further discussion and a possible motion to approve resolution number 54-2022 for a temporary chief building officer and execute contract for Thomas Ahrens.
So moved.
Thanks.
Second.
Thanks. Is there any further discussion? Go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes, with that, we'll go ahead and move to business item 6D, consideration possible approval of revised responses to recommendations on the Marin County Civil Grand Jury Report regarding electrifying Marin's buildings. And Rebecca, I guess I'll turn this back over to you. You're on a roll.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And also our town attorney, Amy Ackerman, who advised staff on the completion of the staff report, can also speak to this item. But just to start things off, as stated in the staff report, council did approve the response to this grand jury report at our August 16th town council meeting. And recently, on September 21st, council received and the town received notification that two of the responses did not satisfy the code with respect to required responses to grand jury reports, in that they did not list a time in which the item would be responded to. So for example, for recommendation number 2, the response was that this recommendation has not been implemented yet and may be implemented in the future. And our 2 was this recommendation requires further analysis. And if you provide a response that says a recommendation requires further analysis, the statute requires that you provide a timeline for that analysis. And for R3, the response was this recommendation has not been implemented yet and may be implemented in the future, but also again, without a time estimate. So the recommended response for R2 now, which is on or before January 1st, 2023, Marin County and each of its cities and towns that have not already done so should adopt a REACH code requiring energy efficiency measures in connection with renovation of existing residential buildings. The REACH code should specify the size of the renovation that will trigger the requirement and provide flexibility by allowing the applicant to choose from a list of energy efficiency measures, including electrification of gas appliances. The recommended response at this time is to change it to the recommendation will not be implemented. Staff is working on it, and this may be one of the functions of the new building official, or perhaps Thomas can help with it. Our climate action committee is also provided a response recently at their last meeting. The building codes will be brought to council for the annual or the every 3-year adoption this coming November 1st and November 15th for review and then adoption. We don't yet know if it's enough time to include any of the REACH codes in those, or if they would be brought in to council parallel or a few months later. It is on staff's goal and work plan. We just didn't want to state a timeline because the grand jury will follow up on that, and we want to meet and exceed expectations, but they are coming. And for item number 3, R3, Marin County and each of its cities and towns collaborating through the Marin Climate and Energy Partnership or otherwise should develop a comprehensive countywide building electrification plan to be completed on or before January 1st, 2024. The plan should identify those strategies, programs, and concrete actions necessary to bring about an equitable, prompt, and material acceleration of building electrification throughout the county. The recommended response now is that response has not yet been implemented, but will be implemented in the future. We are committed to participating in a countywide implementation plan, and if other jurisdictions participate, our intent is to complete a plan by January 1st, 2024. And with that, I will turn the discussion over to our town attorney for any further clarification.
Good evening, council. I just wanted to let you know that Corte was not the only jurisdiction who the grand jury sent back the response for corrections due to lack of timeline. So I just want to let you know that this was not this was the response, and the penal code is really rigid in how you can respond and requiring the timelines. And I think it's challenging sometimes to make the particular issue fit within those responsive guidelines. And so even if the town is intending to carry this out, sometime a 6-month timeline is just too tight to do it. So we've advised on revisions, and hopefully that will satisfy the grand jury.
Thanks. Are
Just
there any,
to add, this is a recent, somewhat in recent years, development on behalf of the grand jury, because it's easy for towns and staffs to respond, oh, this will be evaluated. But we all know what our work plans are like and our workloads, and will be evaluated, gets pushed to the back burner. So they really want to try and hold staff and councils accountable to their responses.
any questions from town council members? No, with that, I'll go ahead and open up for public comment. Anybody from public wishing to speak on this comment, on this subject? I do not see any hands raised. Did we get any email comments in on this?
We did not receive any emails.
Thanks. With that, I will go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to council for possible, we're looking for approval of the revised responses.
I'll move that we approve the revised responses to the Marin Civil Grand Jury Report electrifying Marin's buildings.
I'll second that.
Thanks. Any other further discussion? Go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes. With that, we'll move to 6E, consideration of possible adoption resolution number 55-2022 to revise the department head salary schedule. This is the second time we've heard this. It was introduced at our last meeting. With that, Rebecca, can you just give us a high level overview of this again, since we.
But before I do, I noticed that Adam Wolf has rejoined. So I wanted to give him a moment to see if he wanted to take this one.
But you're
Adam,
doing so
are you
good.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? I'm so sorry.
No problem, ma'am. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Just for anybody who may be watching, I'm trying to connect from the mountains of southern Colorado here, and I'm able to do so via Zoom before, but now I'm doing it by phone, so it's my last resort here. So looks like Rebecca and everybody has done a great job of getting this to 6E, so I will just take this. We, at the last council meeting, we introduced a revision to the salary schedule after a performance evaluation for the Director of Public Works and the Manager of Sanitary District 2 was performed in August. And as well as after conducting a salary survey, we went over the reasons why we felt, staff felt that, and I felt that we should be considering, and the council should consider a revision to that salary schedule that would increase the salary by 5%, which would put that Director of Public Works and Manager of Sanitary District 2 in line with colleagues, although we did talk about there wasn't a perfect fit given the unique nature of RJ's responsibilities and our position in town and as Manager of Sanitary District 2. So tonight is the second reading of that, and this would be the meeting in which we would ask council to adopt the resolution revising the salary schedule adjustment by 5%. And this would be a 11,000 increase to the town's budget.
Thanks. Any questions? Thanks, Adam. Any questions from council members? No, with that, I'm going to open up for public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on this topic, please raise your hands. And I don't see any hands raised. Did we get any email comments in?
We did not.
Thanks. So I still don't see any hands raised. I'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to council. And we're looking for a possible motion to adopt Resolution 55-2022 to revise department head salary schedule.
So moved.
Second.
Thanks. If there's no further discussion, go ahead and call for the vote.
Councilmember Beckman,
Yes.
Councilmember Mongan, Councilmember Ravazio,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lee,
Yes.
Mayor Casissa.
Yes, and with that, we'll go ahead and move to council reports. Adam, I know you're on vacation and I really don't want to take a lot of your time because I feel if you're on vacation, you're on vacation. Is there anything you want to add for your town manager's report, keeping it really short?
Nothing to report, no.
Thanks. With that, we'll go ahead and move to town council reports. Eli?
Nothing to report.
Thanks. Bob?
Nothing to report.
Charles?
Brett, I'll let you talk about the MC in-person meeting and report about that, but that's the only meeting that I've attended so thus far, but I do have a TM meeting coming up that I'll report on next time.
Okay, thanks. And I also attend the MCCMC meeting, and as Charles noted, it was kind of nice because it's the first time, I think, in 2 years or so, we're actually in person. It was just really great to meet people that, for me personally, that I've seen on Zoom that I've never met in person before. And I think for myself, I think for Charles also, that was our first meeting actually in person for MCCMC, because when we got appointed, it was all via Zoom. So I just think it was great. And I think the next one, Rebecca probably know, I think is in October or November. And I think that's going to be in person also. I think it's being hosted by Nevada. The only other thing I'm sorry, Rebecca. Okay. And the only other thing
I was just going to agree with you and say, yes, the next meeting is October 28th, and it is hosted by the city of Nevada.
Thanks. And then I did also attend the Spirit of Marin Awards. Just to note that Zinn's Wine Bar with Patsy and Kyle, they got award for the Small Business of the Year. And that's the first time I attended that event also. It was really well done. It was about 250 throughout Marin that were there, elected officials, business people. So it was a really great event. And kudos to them for getting the award. If there's no other thing, nothing else, we have the draft agenda for our October 18th meeting. And with that, if there's no further business to come before the council, I don't see any, I will go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and I appreciate everybody's time. And I can see Charles is like, can't wait to like gavel it closed. Go for it. Thank you.